Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about working with the Diablo, the Sanctuary Tarot. So I've gotten actually quite a few requests, I think mostly like through Instagram and like DMs and stuff like that, of people asking me about this deck and how do I like it and is it working for me? Because I guess I've shown it a lot on Instagram lately, which is probably because I'm also playing Diablo, the new Diablo, with my husband. And so like we've been really just ensconced in the whole Diablo lore and fandom and all of that as of late. But I thought I would just come on here and talk about, this deck. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to look at maybe some pairings. And I just thought I'd share with you a little bit about how I've been using it. So I did not put my deck back in order. This is not going to be like proper walkthrough. There's plenty of those on YouTube. Feel free to check them out if you want to see like the in order thing. I'll flip through the deck as I'm talking, but mostly what I want to talk about is how I've been working with this deck. So this is a deck by Blizzard, which just totally makes my gamer heart happy. I just have to say, I'm holding out for a WoW deck, hopefully, World of Warcraft. Yes, please. Honestly, my only complaint with this deck, and like I love it so much I totally forgive it, but it is obnoxiously huge. I mean, obnoxious. So it doesn't stop me from working with it though. So like there's that. So we'll get to the guidebook. Here, I don't know. Maybe we won't. I'm just gonna mention it. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do because I actually don't work with it. And that's nothing against the guidebook. It's a lovely little guidebook. It's written by the fabulous Barbara Moore. And we've got, the lovely images and really just succinct messages. We have an upright and reversed. And yeah, I mean, it's just a great little standard guidebook, but I don't work with it mostly just because I don't need to. But back to the ridiculous size of this deck, let me pull out, spoiler for some of the oracles I'm gonna pair with it, but this is a Blue Angel oracle deck. And can you see, I'm like black on black here. That was real smart of me, but we're gonna roll with it. That's probably not gonna help a ton because the fronts are black too. But like you can see, it's like, I don't even know, I'm terrible at measurements. Is that an inch? Maybe it's an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch wider and an inch taller. Like it's postcard size. So I'm not sure. Also spoiler, like here's Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. And that is pretty standard tarot size. So, maybe a little bit smaller, like dude. What is up with the size of this deck? So that little like WTF with the size of this thing, it's massive. Here's my hand. It's bigger than my hand, right? I don't care. I can still work with it. It's so super huge that it kind of actually works in a weird sense, and I'm gonna get to that. So the backs have this like, I don't know, is that called spot glass? I think it is. Lisa would know better than me, but there's the sort of emblem on the back here. And then we have actually a really gorgeous matte cardstock. I'm gonna keep this card on top because like I wanna talk about it. Anyway, gorgeous cardstock. I'll just do a shuffle really quickly because like I have to side shuffle it. It does side riffle, but like I can't bridge it because it's just like, I kind of can, but it's not fabulous. And scoot it back together, right? Okay, so the size is obnoxious. WTF there. However, this deck is kind of amazing. I love it. So I'm gonna just kind of ramble about it for a minute, and I'll talk about certain cards when they come up because like this Lover's card I definitely want to talk about. Again, like I said, if you want to see a proper walkthrough of this deck, this is probably not the video because I'm actually going to talk more about how I work with it. So this Lover's card is everything. This might be my favorite Lover's card of all times. And it is because I know the lore, I know the story of what's going on in this card and who these characters are. We basically have like Lilith, this like demon from hell, and then an angel, and just even taking the story, the lore out of it, the idea of a demon and an angel in the Lover's card speaks volumes to me because of the way that I work with the Lover's card. It's not necessarily so much like a choice for me. The Lover's is a conduit to the divine, and I love that we have this kind of heaven and hell, above and below, divine and mundane, all of that coming together, creating this sort of central point, this conduit within this card. So from just a lover standpoint, I think this card is amazing because it's an angel and a demon coming together, essentially. When you add the story on top of that, it's just amazing. It's an amazing, amazing card. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of flip through the deck. You'll see that there's some repeating characters because of course there are, you know, main characters in the world of Diablo. This deck, just to, you know, warn anybody, there is, like, I don't know that there's necessarily like a lot of bloody stuff. I mean, there is some blood, but like it's all red, so it kind of blends in. There's demons. There's stuff sticking through people. Like, this is a dungeon crawler of a game. It is about, you know, slaying demons. So like going in, that's the context, and that's going to be the artwork. This Queen of Pentacles is amazing. I love her. I love that we have the pentacle over here and the baby over here that's like almost with the halo. So to me, this kind of brings the idea of the Queen of Pentacles as that embodying the above and below coming together, as I think all queens do. And I just think this card depicts that beautifully. Again, if you know the story of these cards, like it's really amazing. But I think it's a great tarot deck too, because of how the cards are depicted and sort of the take, or what I get out of working with it, I guess, in terms of it being a tarot deck. So again, I'm just going to flip through. I'll point out a few cards that I think are like exceptional. This Temperance card, again, we see the angel here, and again, when you know the story, is just kind of amazing. I love that for Temperance because this, again, to me embodies that idea of the above and below, the divine and the mundane. Good versus evil. I mean, that can be a Temperance energy too, right? We don't like to talk about good versus evil because that's kind of a cliche, but like there are good and evil things in the world, and Temperance is sometimes finding the balance between, because we're not either one. We're aspects of both. And I love that about this deck. We'll get to that. This star, again, is amazing. See the same kind of angel figure here, but you have kind of like the threads that he's holding here, creating this connection point between these two things, which is really fantastic. This Eight of Swords, very traditional, but I love it because this figure is very clearly not actually bound. And I love that they're holding their head, because this to me really gives that idea of swords as a suit of the mind. This chaos, this restriction, this limitation is all in his head. We do see chains, but they're kind of like just wrapped around him. I don't get the sense that this figure is actually bound. He just feels bound. And I love that for an Eight of Swords card. Again, really amazing. Hierophant is really great, particularly because there are lots of sort of esoteric layerings in the Diablo lore and in the franchise. Death card, again, just like a big Grim Reaper, right? It's fantastic. So yeah, I think that these are actually really fantastic cards. I really like the depiction. Here we have the Chariot with like a demon kind of with the hellhounds here. And I like that there's 4. There's also a balancing number, like it's a stable number. So the idea that there's 4 here really creates that idea of a stable sense of purpose that you're going off into the world with, right? You're harnessing that. And you can see that while there's a chain, the chain is actually not like attached to their face, being that they kind of have control, free will of their own. And it's almost like the chain is just keeping him, like he's just holding on with it. It's keeping him on the beast that he's riding. And so we get that sense of these two characters, or these two creatures, the demon and the demon and the demons, the demon and the beast, working together to create that forward movement. And I love that. Again, things are bloody, but it's Diablo. This Four of Cups is awesome. I love it because it doesn't look like this figure is bored or unsatisfied with what cups are being offered. He's contemplative about them, like he's rising above it. He's reflecting on it. And I really, really love that. Again, I think that this deck, and I think this happens a lot with fandom decks, that it gets just like classified as a fandom deck, and therefore it's only for people who enjoy that fandom. But a lot of these decks have a lot of depth to them that I think just gets really overlooked. Lilith as the Empress is like amazing. That, again, if you know the story, even better, but it's amazing. And you can see like the tether here, just fantastic. The tether to the divine. Nine of Wands is beautiful. Like, I'm going to try not to linger too much on individual cards because we would be here forever, because I could go into depth of all of these individual cards, but I want to get to more of the like overall working with it than just the individual cards themselves. And this moon card is really cool. It's a little bit reminiscent of Judgment, which I like because we have these figures that are like reaching up toward the moon. And then you can see the sort of Diablo face in the moon itself, which is kind of amazing. So Knight of Cups, Sun is awesome. We have like not a baby, but an older gentleman, right? Again, you could go into the story, but on a base level, it's an older gentleman. He's wise. He's seen the world. He knows where he is and what he's about and what he needs to do. And I love that energy in the Sun card. It's not as innocent as the Rider-Waite-Smith, but nothing in this deck is. This Eight of Wands is, I think, one of the cards, and it often does in most tarot decks these days. It kind of just, it's the same old thing and it falls a little flat. We'll get to the Three of Swords because, you know, I gotta all have say about that. King of Cups, love this Six of Swords with all the demon hands like reaching up. But like, he's still moving on. He's still doing his thing. Like, whatever else is lurking beneath the surface is not going to keep this character from moving forward and doing the things that he needs to do, right? He's not going to let his demons drag him down. He's going to keep moving forward. And I love that. This is a brutal Ten of Swords. Absolutely brutal. But again, in keeping with the theme of this deck and the lore and the fandom of Diablo, it completely makes sense that there's a clear ending here of something, and we're going to move forward from there with a new understanding. So I do like it. It works. Judgment is awesome. Three of Wands. Love this Emperor. Again, when you look at the Emperor, I should have pulled them out, but the Emperor is the angel, the Empress is the demon, and they come together in the Lovers card. Absolutely love that. Nine of Cups is wonderful. Love this Nine of Pentacles. I mean, like, every card in this deck, I think, has, for the most part, with the exception of the Eight of Wands, has something really amazing going on in it. This High Priestess, again, story-wise, fantastic, but I also love the fact that she's actually not facing us. She's more like, you know, come with me, follow me, I will teach you. And I think that, again, it's in alignment with the story, but also I think works really well for a High Priestess. Now, this Four of Pentacles is interesting because it could be very miserly, very typical Rider-Waite-Smith Four of Pentacles, but he's also just like gathering his resources, so I think that works really well. Ten of Pentacles. This one is really interesting because there is a bit of kind of like finality and sadness to this Ten of Pentacles, which we don't usually see. So I feel like this almost represents a little bit of the shadow side. And a lot of this deck does, which, I mean, I don't think would really be any surprise. Tower's fantastic. Try to move a little bit quicker or we will be here forever, because I could just go on and on about all of these cards. This Nine of Swords is amazing. It's amazing. Just saying. Like, the full-on big demon just lurking above. That's amazing. Justice. Perfect. The angel wings are, of course, white, and the sword is red. I love the duality of that. There's our Seven. Two of Swords. That one comes up for me a lot. I really like it. I think this Ten of Cups is phenomenal. I love that all the cups are pouring down on the character, and then we have all of these skulls down beneath, and it's almost like the emotional landscape is threatening to overtake them, but they're honing it, they're channeling it, they're holding space for that emotional turmoil that's kind of happening beneath the surface, and they're letting it kind of just pour through them, and I really love that for the Ten of Cups. Again, all of this is my own interpretations. It's not what's in the guidebook. This is just how I've been working with these cards and what has come up for me in working with them. So I probably should have qualified that in the beginning of this video, but here we are. I adore the Seven of Cups because we have, again, that same figure, that same idea of the angel figure here, and then we have all the cups, and all the cups are an offering to this one figure. It's not like a pick and choose. They're all for you type of an energy, which is really interesting, and it could lean a little bit, I think, into maybe some gluttonous type of energy as well with the Seven of Cups, which can sometimes be like there's too many things being offered to you and maybe you do need to pick and choose. But in this sense, they all feel like they're being like offered in a like actual offering to this figure, which is interesting. Love the Five of Swords with everything all bound up. I think that's amazing. I love that in this Six of Cups, like all the fives are down here. So the 5 is like that turmoil number, right? So like in the 6, you've gotten all your cups in a row, and then you've got your 6 cup here, if you're like rising above that turmoil that came out of the 5. I just think that's amazing. This card is a little like, it's a little bit of a miss for me just because I feel like more could have been done. But I do love that we have like the shadowy demon figure kind of lurking on the outside of this sort of temple-y, cathedral looking window with the pentacles inside. It works. I just feel like there could be more. This card's amazing with the Hermit, again, if you know the story, but I'm going to try not to go too far into that because I know most people don't. I love this Queen of Wands too. This 5 with all the interconnecting like staves and maces here. This 2 of Cups is fantastic. I really enjoy that one too. The Strength is really cool because I don't tend to like to see Strength as almost like a dominating over something else. And I know that is how it's traditionally depicted, but for me personally, I like to see Strength as more of a reciprocal relationship. But there is that side of strength being the sort of inner demons that we slay, that inner beast, that animalistic self that humans, because we are animals, have to sort of rise above in order to, you know, be more enlightened beings. So I kind of get that sense out of this card, which I do actually really like. And again, it encourages me to look at things in a little bit different way, which I think is really fantastic. I love this 5 of Cups. Absolutely love it because for one, the all the cups, it's like they're flowing backwards, like they're flowing up. I don't know if that's the intention, but that's how it feels to me. Like the I mean, you could see it as like it's rain pouring down into the cups, right? But the way I see it is like all of this is being released, all of this 5 of Cup energy, all of this emotional baggage or emotional energy is being like released. And then you have the 1 cup that like he's got turned sideways, like he's still holding on though. He's not actually letting go. And that's a very 5 of Cups energy for me. Sorry, I keep saying I'm not going to go into detail, but you know, like it keeps happening. 3 of Swords. Okay, so y'all know how I feel about the 3 of Swords if you've been on my channel for any amount of time, because I always complain about it. However, this particular 3 of Swords works if you're going to do a typical 3 of Swords depiction. I still would have liked to have seen something else here. However, this is an anatomical heart, and there are like demon faces and demon eyes kind of worked into the artwork, and then we have the swords going through it. Again, it's very fitting with the lore of the fandom that we're looking at, and again also sits really in that traditional space of the Rider-Waite-Smith 3 of Swords. Not how I read it, but I do think that this depiction does work well for this deck. Devil, I mean, you would expect to see a pretty good devil in a Diablo Tarot, right? And I think this one is really cool. There is a real sinister, shadowy energy to this card, which I feel like is like, there's kind of a little bit of that throughout the deck anyway, but like this devil card feels particularly sinister, and within this deck, I feel like it needs to. So I think they did a really good job with that. This 4 of Swords is wonderful. So I just try to get to the last few cards here. I love the 7 of Pentacles where he's like reaching out to touch her face. And the 3 of Pentacles. Okay, so that was a much longer flip through than I really intended it to be. I do want to talk really quickly about working with this deck. It's massive. Like seriously. Okay, so I love the interpretations that I receive out of working with this deck. Again, that's not, everything I said is not really what's in the book. That's just my own thoughts and feelings as I work through working with this deck. What this deck does for me, and one of the reasons that I've really enjoyed using it, besides the fact that I just like enjoy the fandom and the lore, and like it has the most amazing Lovers card ever, and I love the Empress Emperor Lovers combo. In fact, as we're sitting here, like, let me just grab those. So one of the things that I really love about this deck is it kind of takes that idea of like good and evil, and, you know, above and below, the divine and the mundane, and it kind of shows that messy intersection between them, particularly, again, if you know the story, but I think in the artwork, it does that really well. So we have the Empress here, and we have, you know, the demon. The demon is the Empress. She's also the mother in the story, and the Emperor is the angel. And I think that those two coming together, what that we see in this Lovers card, is just absolutely fantastic, because it shows that sort of messy intersection between, like, let's just say good and evil, even though those are terms we don't usually like to throw around. But like I said, there's good and evil in everybody, in everything. It's, you know, very few things are that cut and dry. And so I love that this depicts that spectrum of that sort of messiness, grittiness, reality of that nothing is fully good or fully evil. And like, it's all about motivations and all about what you do with that energy. And I think that this little like trio just kind of embodies that for me in this particular deck. So that's kind of one of the main reasons why I really enjoy working with this deck, because I like the take of the tarot in it. Again, everything that I said as I was, you know, flipping through the cards was all my own interpretations based on working with the deck. But like, that's how it's kind of resonated for me. I've been calling it like my reality check deck, because when I feel like things are getting overwhelming for me, or I'm like, you know, having a little pity party over here about whatever's going on in my life, when I pull out this deck, because it does show me that messy intersection between the good and evil, because even the good cards kind of look bad, right? They look like there's some sinister stuff going on in a lot of these cards. And even though it's depicting like kind of quote unquote good positive things, there is a hint of that sort of, you know, not quite pure and intentional energy within it, which I feel like kind of just reflects the real world, right? In this weird sort of way. You know, this fandom deck kind of represents the real world. There's good and evil in every single card. And I absolutely love that, because depending on where I'm at, I'll look at what am I picking up on in this card. Am I leaning towards the good, or am I leaning towards the evil? And that reveals a lot to me about my mindset, my mental landscape, my emotional place of being at the moment. And depending on what it is that I'm picking up on, this card's hard to do it with, but it's the only one in the deck. Depending on what I'm focusing on, you know, that really reveals a lot to me about where my head is at, where my emotional landscape is at. And so this deck works really well for kind of giving me that reality check of, okay, this is how you're seeing this card. And because there is that good and evil in every single card, I can look to see where I'm leaning. It also, because it's so dramatic, it also kind of serves to remind me that, like, hey, whatever you got going on, like, it's not that bad. Like, it could be worse, right? It could be worse. And it kind of serves in that reminder too of like, it gets me out of that sort of pity party mentality of, oh, poor me, this is going wrong in my life, right? And I can pull this deck out, and it's so weird to say that a fandom deck based on Diablo creates a reality check for me, but it does. And then, you know, I can tie all the lore and my personal associations with these characters in this story and this game and all of that kind of stuff, right? So like, you add all of that into it, and it just creates this completely multi-layered experience for me. That Five of Cups, man, it gets me every time. I think it's amazing. So that's really how I've been working with it, is in those ways to really help me to see where I'm at, to understand my own kind of emotional landscape. I think it's also a really great, like, I don't really do shadow work in that sense. Like, I don't sit down to try and do shadow work. For me, it just comes up naturally at any given day, in any given moment. And it's just like, I can do it with any deck is kind of what I'm trying to get at. However, if you do work with like shadow work, and that's a thing that you try to actively work on and cultivate in your practice, I think a deck like this would work really well, because for me personally, when I look at it, I see the light and shadow in every single card. And maybe that should be the term I should use in this video instead of good and evil, is light and shadow, but good and evil fits more within the context of the lore, but it's the same thing, right? Light and shadow, the what we know, what we fear, right? The things that we're proud of and the things that we're not, because we all have those aspects to ourselves. So that's where I'm at with this deck. Okay, am I pairing it? Because that's always the next question. Sometimes, but really no. Most of the time what I've been doing with this deck is using it as a single card draw, if 3 cards at most, because what I'm doing is looking at diving deep into this card, this image, and because I have that knowledge, that fandom knowledge in the back of my brain as well, I can continue to add layers to it. So I've been using this deck more in a sense of like just a single card most of the time, and occasionally I will pull 2 or 3 if I feel like I need a little bit more context, but like I get enough out of working just 1 card, and it's so dang big, it kind of feels like I fall into it as it is. But I did want to try pairing it. I mean, I have done, this is not a great deck to try and do this with, and I've tried to keep my table really clear, and in fact I'm gonna move this because this deck is so big, it takes up so much space. And that's also, like, in all honesty, kind of a drawback. I am gonna try to do the Oracle in the center, but honestly, it's probably not how I would work with this deck, but we're gonna try it. Because I just wanted to kind of give a little try, give a little play to see what I would have in my collection that would work with this deck. I feel like there might be more tarots than oracles, and I did pull out 2 tarots that I have used with it, so I'm gonna show you those as well. But I thought, you know, we'll try. This is probably not gonna go really well, but you know, we like to play with pairing. So let's see, I have the Vampire Oracle here, Lucy Cavendish one, and Jasmine Beckett Griffith. I always forget to say the names. And I feel like this deck, so we could go into the masculine and feminine here with this too, right? The duality aspect of that, because this deck does have, for me personally, in the way that I work with cards and the way that I work with that energy, it does have a masculine feel to it. So I thought maybe pairing it with something that, on the flip side of that, has a also dark but feminine feel to me, is the little Vampire Oracle. And I thought we'd just see how those kind of pair together. There's so much on my table, and these cards are so big that I don't even know where to put things. So let's just see. I didn't even say what the first one was, but Queen of Cups, 9 of Cups with Enlightenment in between. I mean, that's pretty cool. One of my favorite cards in the deck, love that one. 3 of Wands, King of Wands, Ancestry, Egypt, and Magical Inheritance. I mean, Magical Inheritance definitely works within the aspect of this world. Oh, there's my main favorite card, between the primal, between Judgment and 2 of Cups. That's kind of amazing. Connecting deep within, Sacred Dance, and Instinct. I mean, aesthetically speaking, are they the most beautiful things in the world? Probably not. But like, if you need an oracle to focus in on, or to kind of create that anchor for your reading, I mean, this might be a good one. Sacrifice with the 10 of Swords and Strength. I mean, yeah, that works. That works really well. So I feel like more it's the messages that are coming through and working versus the artwork, so to speak. It's not the best, beautiful aesthetic pairing in the world, but I like the messages so far. So 6 of Swords and the World with Transgression. Let's just do one more, because this video is going to get really long. Seduction between the King of Cups and the Queen of Wands. Like doing a little court liaison there, right? All right, let's stick with the sort of shadow worky vibe with the Wisdom of the Shadow. Page of Wands, 6 of Cups with the Inner Child. Actually, that works. I like that. Both of those cards give me sort of inner child feels. Rising with the 10 of Wands and the King of Pentacles. I kind of like this. He definitely feels like he's rising. That's pretty cool. Opening with the King of Swords and the 7 of Pentacles. Doesn't that look like a big fork? Every time I see it, I just see big fork. Sorry, so distracted. Discomfort with the 8 of Cups and the 3 of Swords. I mean, yeah, there's some definite discomfort going on in these cards, in these images. I kind of like the messages. I don't know that the artwork 100% aligns for me, but yeah. Shame, 6 of Pentacles and the Devil. Yeah, definitely some shame energy can be going on there. Boundaries with the 7 of Wands and the 4 of Swords. Yeah, I kind of like that. Apologies, bad word on that card. I'll do one more. All right, Reflection, Nine of Wands, Page of Pentacles. I mean, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Am I loving it? No. Let's switch gears and let's do this kind of tarot oracle thing. This is my Outgrow Yourself oracle, tarot oracle. So it's Thoth tarot with oracle messages. And actually this is a pairing that I've kind of used, although this is not how I did it. So maybe we should switch it up. I put the Diablo in the center as my focal point, because that is the real powerhouse of a message. And then I used the Outgrow Yourself to provide messages coming and going from this energy. So Page of Pentacles, so coming is count your blessings, and going is you're already there, enjoy. With the Page of Pentacles, I mean, that's kind of cool. There are tarot associations, but the way I'm working with this is actually not using the tarot associations. I'm working with the oracle messages. So Three of Pentacles, that is where we're at. That's the energy. And coming in, we've got don't invite everyone into your castle. Love that. And coming out of that energy is pain is growing. And that's really cool. So this is actually more how I've been working with this deck when I have paired it a few times with tarot, again, or with other decks, I guess I should say. But again, really, I've been mostly using it on its own, but I really do kind of like this little pairing. And I think aesthetically it works pretty well. So we have the Ten of Cups, that's our focal. Coming in, we have you only fail when you stop trying. And coming out of the Ten of Cups, we have hide your secret under a tree. And I love that we have the skulls down here and the skulls down here. Like, I just think that that's amazing. So these two together actually I think work really well. But again, I'm using the tarot, the Diablo, as the focal point for this reading. So let's just do one more. Six of Wands, opulence is a state of mind, and reach your full potential. I love that with the Six of Wands. That works really well. So another deck that I've just like played just a little bit with the Diablo in kind of the same way that I was using the Outgrow Yourself is to put the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. I think I forgot to say the name. It's the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. Sometimes the colors in this deck, even though they're actually muted compared to some of the other editions, sometimes is a little bit jarring. Sometimes it works really well, but sometimes it's a little bit jarring. So here we have the Two of Cups and the King of Swords. So we'll just do a couple flip throughs of these. So Two of Swords, Ace of Cups coming in, Five of Cups going out. The Two of Wands with the Lovers coming in and the Ace of Swords coming out. I feel like this one isn't quite as good as, like, it doesn't resonate quite as much as the Outgrow Yourself. That's been my favorite so far of what I've been working with or what I've played with. But again, I really have just been using Diablo on its own. Page of Cups, then we have the Knight of Cups and the Sun. Sometimes they look really beautiful together, but the messages are... So another deck that actually kind of came to mind as I was doing these pairings was to give the Horror Tarot a try. And I thought that this one, because they're both red and black and white, might actually work. I mean, there's other subtle pops of color in the Horror Tarot, but I thought these might actually go really well together if you want to, like, you know, not have any sort of oracle and just work completely with tarot, but you want those kind of different energies. I call this my Castlevania deck. So, like, again, I'm going to pull in nerdy stuff into it, but I think that aesthetically and energetically, they're actually going to work really well together. They're kind of beautiful on the table. My complaint with this deck is I can't ever read the titles. So Two of Pentacles, and I think that's the Knight of Pentacles. And the Nine of Pentacles. Yeah, I'm not going to try to read them because I can't. I think the teeny tiny metallic red font was a really bad choice design-wise because it does make it so hard to read. But this has little metallic red pops to it too. So, like, I don't know. I think they're kind of cool together. And I do like that the Horror Tarot is actually kind of, it's a little bit pippish. So I feel like it's not overly illustrated. And so it goes well with the illustration style that we're seeing here in the Diablo. So yeah, I kind of like that. Also, I think what this does really well is it kind of brings in that more, let's say normal, more recognizable tarot associations that maybe aren't quite as clear in the Diablo Tarot, particularly if you're not familiar with the world. So maybe pairing it with something like the Horror Tarot, which I actually do really love. But again, it's my Castlevania deck because that's what it gives me, the vibes it gives me. Yeah, I think pairing these together actually works really well. So if I wanted to pair tarot and tarot, or I just wanted to do like a basic tarot reading with the Diablo Tarot, and like 3 of these feels like too much, because it's not about it just being huge. Like 3 cards on the table takes up a lot of space, true, but it's more about the amount of energy that's coming from these particular cards from this particular deck, and kind of the like it can be a lot. It can be a lot to work with these images. And so I feel like pairing it with something like the Horror Tarot, which actually kind of like takes it down a notch, it's looking like to me. Pairing it with something like that, I think actually really helps to be able to do a larger tarot reading, but still really hone into this energy and let it be that focal point. Let it be that anchor in the reading. So yeah, I'm kind of digging this one. I might have to play with it because I really, really like these 2 together. And because they both, for me, this is not a video game deck. It's not intended to be a video game deck, but it looks like it exists in the Castlevania world to me. And so, like, for me, I've got Castlevania vibes and Diablo vibes on the table, and that's amazing. All right, throw our pretty plant back into the shot because we can. But yeah, I had many requests from people to talk about this deck and how I work with it. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. Again, I really use it to help me kind of dive into that, let's say light and shadow within myself, because that's like a nicer way to put it, right? The light and shadow within a situation, and it helps me to look at both aspects of that and to see which one am I being more drawn to, and is that where I need to be drawn, or am I being pulled more into the shadow aspect of an energy or a situation, and do I need to readjust from there? So that is primarily how I've been working with this. It is, like I said, it's my keeping it real deck, because as ridiculous as that sounds, being that this is a fandom deck, it does, this Lovers, y'all, it gets me every time. I love it, love it. It does really help me to look at things from a little bit more of, I think, of an objective perspective, because these are not images, as cool as I think they are, they're not images that are gonna make me feel really like, oh, warm and fuzzy and all of that, and like everything's okay, right? I mean, there's a time and a place for that, sure. And I have lots of like hug decks. This ain't no hug deck. So it does encourage me, I think, to look at things from a little bit more of a almost logical perspective, and like, okay, so step out of the situation. You're being more drawn to this energy or that energy, and what does that tell you about where you're at right now? Because again, even if we're talking about situations or dealings with other people, right, we have no control over what anybody else does. The only thing we have control over is how we respond to that. And so this deck also helps me to look at where I'm having those responses, and are they in service to myself and others, or are they not? So this deck does that beautifully. And I think that, like, because it's a fandom deck, I think that like decks like this, as I've said a million times before, get shoved into a corner and they're like, oh, it's just a fandom. And if you're not in that fandom, then this isn't for you. But I think that if you like the artwork, if it speaks to you, if it resonates with you, and if the tarot that you're seeing reflected here in these cards makes sense to you, then why wouldn't you work with it, right? You can totally take the whole Diablo aspect, the story and the lore and all of that out of this deck. It is still a tarot. You can still work with this as a 4 of Swords, a 6 of Pentacles, the Devil, right? The 8 of Cups. This is still an 8 of Cups card. I love this 8 of Cups though, because like, dude is like slaying some stuff, and I think that's an awesome 8 of Cups. It's not just walking away, it is walking away with some purpose, and I think that's cool. See, I could go on a tangent on every single one of these cards, but I won't. Fork card. Anyway, I think that a lot of times decks like these they get like kind of made fun of sometimes, but also like just, oh, it's a fandom deck, right? Fandom is important, y'all. And like, that's a whole thing in and of itself. Might be some stuff coming about that, just little little putting the bug out there. Anyway, yeah, I think it's a great deck, honestly. I'm completely infatuated with it right now. It's definitely one of my most used decks for this month so far. And like, sure, I've got like personal stuff going on in my life and with my extended family and whatnot. And this deck has been helping tremendously with that. But again, it's because of the way that the artwork speaks to me in terms of looking at both the light and shadow aspect of any given card, like regardless, like there's no light and fluffy card anywhere in this deck, anywhere. And so it could be considered a really brutal deck. I mean, that one's maybe just like, it's neither here nor there, right? It's just, it has nothing. It's such a sad card. Anyway, what was I saying? Love it when the words just drop right out of my brain. Yeah, there's no light and fluffy, there's no huggy in this deck, but I do actually find it to be a really balanced reader if you can look and see the light and dark aspects. And like, honestly, you can just look for where it's white and where it's red and where it's black, and that will key you into like a whole lot of things. There's also like, I could go down a rabbit hole of red, black, and white, and that the main character, the Empress, is Lilith. Okay, so red, black, and white, those are like colors associated with the divine feminine. And there's like, if you wanted to take that and run with it, because that's a thread also, like there's so much you could do with a deck like this. And I think that we don't give decks like these enough credit because, you know, like it's a fandom deck. So we just assume that's who it's for. The fans of Diablo. I might be the only one in the world that thinks that. But I personally think it's a fantastic deck, and I have really been enjoying working with it. And I'm just gonna tuck it back in its massive box. And regardless of its ridiculous size, I forgive it for that, and I absolutely am enjoying working with it. So that is a much longer ramble than I had previously intended, but that's what we're doing. Looking at the Diablo Tarot and how I've been working with it. I would love to know if you have this deck. If you don't, what your thoughts are on it, and you know, what you think. So definitely let me know in the comments below. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.